Hey everyone, this is Mike and welcome to my introduction guide to Sage. In today's video I'll go over everything that you need to know to play Sage at level 90. So let's get started with our DPS actions. For single target we have doses, just like with the other healers. This has a short cast time, allowing us to use one off global cooldown in between each cast. For AoE we have Dyscrasia, and this is going to be an instant cast GCD and deals damage around you. And this is going to be great because we have a lot of off-global cooldowns, which will be the main source of our healing, meaning that this is going to be very useful. Now we also have a damage over time ability, but the way that we get there is a little bit special compared to the other healers. So Sage has a buff called Eucrasia, which we can see on our job gauge over here. So when I press the button, you'll see that our Eucrasia button lights up over here, and then on the bottom of the screen you can also see that 3 of my abilities are lighting up. Those are the 3 abilities that will be enhanced when Eucrasia is active. Now the way that we turn Eucrasia off, we can only do it by pressing the or right clicking the buff on our hotbar, unfortunately enough, because otherwise we can't get rid of this. You can use a macro to turn this off if you're playing on a controller, but in general don't press the Eucrasia button if you do not need to use a Eucrasia action. Now the way this works is it's a GCD, but it's a very fast one, and then all of our Eucrasia spells are also going to be very fast ones. So it lines up to be a 2.5 second cast in total. If we take the Eucrasia plus the spell that we're using it on, then we come together at a normal GCD speed. This sadly does not scale with spell speed, so that's something to keep in mind, but it's not too big of a loss because it's only one spell that we'll be using here or there. So that's how we get to our damage over time ability. Our normal GCD doses is going to do damage for us, and then when we have Eucrasia active, our normal GCD turns into a damage over time GCD instead. We then still have Phlegma. This is going to be a melee range GCD that stacks up to 2 times and also does AoE damage, but even though it's an AoE spell, it does the most damage for us. So we do want to be using this as this is a very potent GCD damaging ability, and is also an instant cast, so allows us to move, allows us to double weave, because Sage does not have any normal like instant cast GCDs like the other healers have with their dot, for example. So in most cases we can only use one of global cooldown per GCD that we use. Last but not least, we also still have Toxicon, which I unfortunately enough cannot show on the dummy because it interacts with our job gauge. These little diamonds that you can see on the bottom of the job gauge, whenever those are lit up we can use Toxicon, and Toxicon is an AoE instant cast GCD that does the same damage as our normal single target GCD. So it's always better to use in AoE scenarios than our normal AoE because it does the same damage as our single target attack, but it's even going to be useful on boss fight scenarios because of the fact that it's an instant cast GCD and we don't have that many of them. We do have Phlegma, but that has a cooldown attached to it, and it's also a melee GCD. So for boss fights, Toxicon is basically going to be used for movement, and the way that we get Toxicon stacks is by having our single target shield break, and I'll talk about how we get our single target shield in just a second. So in most fights, because the boss usually will start with an AoE raid wide, we can just apply 3 shields to our teammates, and then at the beginning of the fight you'll just get 3 Toxicon stacks to use for the rest of the fight, and then you have to of course plan out the usages where you want to use them. So that does it for our normal DPS skills. There's one more that does damage for us, but that one also has some healing attached to it, so we'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about our GCD healing first. So for single target we have Diagnosis. This is a fairly weak single target heal, and for AoE we have Prognosis. This is again a fairly weak AoE heal when we compare it to what our other 2 regen healers have that we talked about in the last 2 days. Now both of these spells can be upgraded by using Eucrasia. So when Eucrasia is active, our Diagnosis turns into a single target shield, and it's also this shield that needs to break for you to get a Toxicon stack. So that's something to keep in mind when you're running through a dungeon, because this is also an instant cast ability. You can just run around, spam this on your tank when he's pulling mobs, maybe put one on yourself, jump into the fray, and then you can get 2 Toxicon stacks to use on AoE scenario, for example. And then for our AoE spell, exactly the same. this turns into a heal and a shield instead. So when we use our normal GCD heals for single target and AoE, they're going to be fairly weak. Whenever we use them with Eucrasia active, they are going to be getting a little bit of extra total potency because they do a heal plus a shield on top of that as well. Also, one thing to note is, as you can see, I have 2 healing shields over here, and that is because our single target heal can crit, and whenever it crits, it creates 2 shields for us, exactly the same as Scholar's Adloquium can also create 2 shields, but we'll talk about that in tomorrow's video. So that does it for our normal GCD healing. Let's then go over our off-global cooldowns, as that is where most of Sage's healing stuff comes from. First of all, whenever we start a fight, we want to apply Cardia to our tank. This is an off-global cooldown that has a fairly short cooldown as well, so we can switch it around if there is a tank swap happening, for example. And what this will do is that every time that we use a damaging GCD, so it can be single target, it can be our Phlegma, for example, can also be our AoE, doesn't matter. Whenever we use a GCD that deals damage, we will be healing the target that we put Cardia on. So this is essentially how the Sage's fairy is gonna work, because Scholar has a fairy that constantly regens a tank, but we have to do damage in order to get that regen. So if you're playing Sage, if you're not doing damage, you're also not healing, so very important to note. We also have Soteria, and this is going to be buffing our Cardia heal by 50% for 15 seconds. So if you need a bit stronger regen on your tank, you can use Soteria, and then of course make sure that you keep attacking, because otherwise this isn't going to be healing at all. Something to keep in mind. Then another single target buff that we can give is Crasis. This is going to be buffing the healing received of a target by 20%, so very good if you need to, for example, give a big shield to someone, or just for auto attacks and such, if you're just giving them some other heals as well, very useful. We have Pepsis. This is something that works together with our shields, so when I create a single target or an AoE shield on our party, I can use Pepsis to turn the shield into a heal. The reason why this could be useful is because, as I mentioned before, when we use a shield instead of a normal heal, the potency is going to be higher, so it's going to be nice to just do a normal heal using Pepsis. Another reason why it could be good is that sometimes when a raid wipe happens and you want a shield for it, your shield might be too late, and if it is too late, it's just going to sit there on your party doing nothing, so you might as well activate Pepsis to turn it into a heal instead and not waste the shield that you just cast on your party. We then have Physis. This is going to do 2 things for us. First of all, it's going to apply a healing boosting effect to our party, and it will then also apply a regen over time effect to the party as well. And yes, you can stack this together with Crasis. So if you want to do so, you can do Crasis, Physis, and then apply another regen that we have as well to your tank, for example, so that you can keep them sustained through a dungeon, just to give an example. We then have another AoE heal. This one is Holos, and this will do AoE healing as well as apply a 20-second damage reduction, which is going to be very long. It's only a 10% damage reduction, but still it lasts for 20 seconds, which is quite long in a normal fight duration. And it's only on a 2-minute cooldown as well, so it has a lot of uptime. A very amazing ability. We then also have some off-global cooldown shielding. First off, we have Haima. This is for single target, and this will apply 5 shields to your target. Now the way this works is when the first shield breaks, it will apply a new one, and then every time the shield breaks, it will keep giving new shields until you run out of stacks, or until the duration is gone. Once the duration runs out, all of the shields that are left over that have not been given yet will turn into a heal instead. And of course, just like with the White Mage's Lilybell, it is going to be more valuable to have the shield break every time because it's more total potency, so you get a little bit of diminishing returns if you let it run out. And the same thing goes for AoE. We have Panheima for this one. This will apply 5 stacks of Panheima to your team. Every time the shield breaks, a new one will be applied, and at the end of its duration, when it runs out, it is just going to give a heal instead, as you can see right here. Sage is also the only healer that has a gap closer. We can use this on a boss, as you can see right here, or we can also use it on a party members to jump towards them. So quite nice. This is something that is incredibly fun to use, and I kind of want this on my other healers now as well. We then also have Zoe. This is an ability that boosts our next healing action by 50%. So this is going to be really strong if we need to do some GCD healing, and this works really well together with Numa. Numa is going to be a AoE damaging ability that also does AoE healing, and it's a very strong potency heal, as well as the strongest GCD heal that we have in our kit. And because it's a GCD, we could use Zoe first to buff it by 50%, and then we can use Numa for that very strong AoE heal. So something that you can combo together. Now, because the damage of Numa is going to be the same as your doses, that means that when you're AoEing, Numa is also going to deal more damage than your normal AoE spell. So very good to use in dungeons, because not only is it going to do a lot of damage to the mobs that you're hitting, but it's also going to be healing your tank at the same time. So last thing that we then have to talk about is our job gauge. Now every 20 seconds this bar is going to fill up. I'm just going to quickly spend one of my stacks. As you can see, the bar is going to be filling up, and this can stack up to 3 times, and we can use these on 4 different abilities. So as I just showcased already, we have Druachol. I am going to be butchering all of these names, by the way. This is going to be a single target heal. It's fairly weak, but it is something that we can use when none of our other spells are available. A little bit stronger is going to be Torachol. This is going to be a single target heal and also apply a 15-second damage reduction on your target. So very great to use on your tank, for example, right before they take a tank buster, heals them up, and then also gives them some mitigation for the damage itself. Or when running a dungeon, just give this to your tank whenever they're taking a lot of damage during a mob pack, for example. For AoE, we have our Ixochol. This is just going to be an instant cast AoE heal, so nothing too special about this. And then we also have Kerachol for AoE. This is going to do 2 things. First, it will apply a damage reduction in an AoE around us for 15 seconds, and it will also apply a regen over time. The regen over time from Kerachol is stronger than the instant cast heal that we get from Ixochol, but of course, if you need the instant healing to quickly heal up before a raid wipe, for example, then Ixochol is going to be more useful in that regard. Every time that we use one of our stacks, we are also going to be regenerating some mana. So it is going to be important for Sage to use their stacks as well to regenerate some mana in case you're running out. Unlike Scholar, we don't have any offensive stuff to use this on, so we can always save our stacks for healing purposes. We have nothing to worry about losing damage. Like Scholar with energy drain. The last thing that still works together with our job gauge is Risotoma. Whenever we press this, we just get a free stack of our gauge over here. As you could see, I immediately have 3 now. It gives us 1 every 90 seconds, so it's quite nice to use whenever you need that extra stack. Like for example, you run out of stuff, your tank is out of cooldowns, and you can just spam some Druachols on them, for example, and quickly use Risotoma to get yourself an extra stack if you need it. So that does it for the normal healer's toolkit of Sage. Let's then quickly go over our role actions. Lucid Dreaming will regenerate some mana for us. Surecast is going to be preventing knockbacks on us. Rescue is going to be pulling a party member towards us. Swiftcast will make the next GCD instant cast. Repose is going to be putting a target to sleep, and Esena will remove 1 debuff from a party member. Again, image on the screen to see if something is Esenable or not. And that is going to be doing it for the introduction guide to Sage. If there's any more questions that you might have, then feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below, and I'll definitely get back to you. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank my Patreons for their support, and I'll see you in the next one.